Hello, nervous systems. Hello, optimizers. This is JJ Ruescas. I'm a human optimization strategist, and this is the Optimizing Me podcast. The show where we invite top performers in different areas of personal and professional development to learn from their stories, their strategies, their tactics, mostly their mindset, how they see reality, how they navigate reality to become continuously an optimized version of themselves. Today's guest is someone who embodies transformation and conscious living. After a successful career as a CNN journalist, he found a deeper purpose helping people over 50 reconnect with themselves through microdosing, mindfulness, and personal growth. He is the founder of Cultivating Wisdom and Microdosing Over 50, two platforms leading important conversations around aging intentionally, cognitive enhancement, and emotional wealth. Whether through his content, his charismatic personality, and any type of resource that he's putting online, he's helping people redefine success in life's second chapter with curiosity, clarity, and presence. And going back to presence, being in presence of this man is simply a joy. It has brought me so much pleasure at that moment, and inspired me to not only keep up with my own work, but also share what he's doing. And that's the reason we have him today. I'm excited to explore his journey and the powerful work he is doing. Please welcome to the podcast, Cesar Marin. Welcome, Cesar. So good to have you here.
JJ, what a humbling introduction. Thank you very much for that. I feel exactly the same way when I've been with you, in front of you, your energy, your presence, your charisma, how engaging you are. It was a true mirror. It was a true mirror meeting
Thank
you,
you.
seeing you, feeling your energy. So thank you so much for opening the doors of your podcast to welcome me, to let me share my story and share what I'm doing. So thank you very much. I'm like I said, I'm thrilled, I'm honored, I'm humbled to be part of your podcast, JJ. So, just hoping to help people look at optimization a different way. That's why I really
Right.
love what you're doing and love your podcast. Um, because it is about that. It's about how we optimize as humans, which is incredibly important. So I love that that's a key of your message is that optimization.
Nice. Thank you so much, Cesar. And actually, going back into the optimization, let's start talking about your story. Who is Cesar Marin and what is cultivating wisdom? Let's go with those two main questions.
Yeah, thanks again for letting me share my story, JJ. So, yeah, about 3 years ago, I was a producer at CNN. I had been at CNN for about 25 years. I was the typical 50 something year old in the typical hamster wheel race of corporate life, right? Just going through the motions, getting the job done. And plant medicine comes into my life about 2.5 years ago, right before I was about to get laid off at CNN. And it was really intuitive of the mushrooms to know when I really needed them, to know when I needed to open up my thinking a little bit differently. And it was the winter of 2022 that plant medicine, that psychedelics, mushrooms come into my life. In at the beginning a recreational curiosity, but then really quickly realizing that wait a minute, these molecules, these elements, these things that the universe has given us can be used for optimization and they can be used for healing. And I create a platform called Cultivating Wisdom. And Cultivating Wisdom started as an apparel brand, a clothing brand, for people to be able to manifest the fact that they're using psychedelics responsibly, that they're using them in a respectful way, that they're using them safely. So I created the apparel brand to start conversations. That someone can wear a shirt that says microdosing because that starts conversations. Someone says, "Oh, you microdose? I've heard about that. I've read about that. Can you cultivate me with some wisdom?" And then from there, I realized that, okay, there's this gap, there's this bridge that needs to be built. People my generation, people over 50, who were stigmatized about psychedelics, who were scared because they had an experience once in college and it didn't, it went really bad. So I created microdosingover50.com, which is a platform for people over 50 to gain honest, open, and objective information about microdosing and about psychedelics. I've had quite a transformation in my life in the last 2.5 years, going from this corporate employee at CNN to now being an entrepreneur, owning my own platform, starting my own business, figuring out how I optimize what I'm doing to become a better partner, a better parent, a better business owner. So it's been quite a unique last 2.5 years, going from CNN, the big corporate CNN, to having my own platform, my own business. So it's been incredible, and in that time I've been incredibly lucky to have incredible people like yourself cross my paths and become part of this incredible journey that we're all on, of creating better humans, right? Of optimizing humans, of having these discussions about different things that we can use, whether it's breath work, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's meditation, to become definitely a better human. So that's a bit in a nutshell how I end up going from being a
Mhm.
producer at CNN to now being a thought leader in the psychedelic space.
I want to ask in this story, what was the key moment that led you to make the decision? Because this is what, imagine this. I mean, I work with leaders whose top issue is that this tipping point when the identity that they had
Hmm.
been living for decades probably and has been
Mm-hmm.
successful or quote successful to
Yep. Yep.
their metric of success at this moment does not work anymore, and they need to go into a new level, and that requires what I call the identity change, the identity
Mm-hmm.
optimization. What was for you the key moment that led you to like, okay, we need to change this?
It went, when it was, JJ, it was really me being open about what I was doing at CNN, where I realized me talking more about it, openly having these discussions with people, adult conversations says, look, there's science behind this. This isn't the psychedelics of the 60s. This is the psychedelics of Johns Hopkins University, of NYU, of Berkeley, of Stanford, of Harvard, of all these institutions that are seeing how these molecules can be used. So I think the turning point for me was that going from, being this corporate employee to being an advocate, to openly speaking about what I was doing, and this sense of it would almost gave me this power of myself, of believing in myself, of trusting myself, and it takes courage, right? It takes courage to say, hey, I'm doing something that's making me better. In some places, it's illegal, right? But I'm still doing it. I'm doing something that a lot of people don't understand, that a lot of people are scared of, that a lot of people. So I think it was that sense of that confidence that they gave me, that sense of, yeah, I can talk about this openly. I think that's where the monumental shift was, because it really went from, me being this corporate person to me being myself, to me really pushing and telling my story. And it was funny because, JJ, I mean, look, I went from 25 years at CNN telling other people's stories, right? Other people's stories in the news, to now telling my story. And that's where the shift was. The shift was from really realizing that I had the message to give, right? That somehow I could be the voice of reason, right? The voice of, hey, you know what? Let's have an adult conversation about psychedelics, instead of snickering and, laughing it off and thinking it's all about people doing, drugs, which that's definitely not what it's about. It's about
Mhm.
healing. It's about optimization. So it's a great question, because it was when I really got that sense of saying, you know what, go openly talk about this. Go openly talk about what you were doing, because you don't know who this can change. You don't know how this can make
Mhm.
someone better. So it was at that moment where it was that shift happened for me, from going, like I said, from being on that just potential or eternal hamster wheel, to then doing something on my own all alone, which again, it's incredibly gratifying, but it's also scary being an entrepreneur.
Very scary, very scary. Not only the starting the business, but also, as I mentioned, your identity is so tied to that, right? As an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And now, question,
Mhm.
what is the kind of two things? What is the kind of resistance that you found in the system that you lived in the ecosystem, and what is the kind of support that you found when you started leaning into this new identity?
Hmm. The obviously the pushback is always the doubt, the fear, the not knowing. And the best example for me, obviously, is my mother, right? When I tell my mother that I'm going to start to use psychedelics, she was like, "What? Wait, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Like, have you literally like lost your mind? Have you just, what's wrong? So there was that resistance, but it was the resistance of not knowing, right? It was the resistance of the unknown. It was the resistance of not being educated about the proper, safe use of psychedelics. And as a little bit of time goes by and she sees, wait a minute, he started his own business, he's talking differently, he's acting differently. It's funny because she's in Colombia, where I'm originally from, and she sees this pendant that I always wear, and it's a pendant of a mushroom. And she hands it to me and she says, I'm so proud of what you're doing. So I tell people, my parents are proud of the fact that I use psychedelics, which, it went from that pushback to that really hard pushback. You're crazy. What are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing. You've lost it, to, okay, wait a minute. This is totally different. So that to me, the pushback always comes from the people not knowing, right? But then when they start to hear my story, when they start to see the change, when you start to say, hey, look, there's science behind this. There's really scientific evidence that this is helping people. That's where people open up a little bit. And JJ, look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I'm going to talk to 5 people, right? 2 of them are going to say, druggy, hippie, stoner, that's for losers. Go out in the woods and do your drugs. That's going to happen. 2 people, you're going to poke at their childhood curiosity and they're going to be, wait a minute, what? Psychedelics are being used for medicine? What are you even talking about? Yes, go do some research. But you're going to have that one person who you potentially changed their lives by them saying, wait a minute, whatever that person was going through, that's what I'm going through right now. And they were able to overcome it. They were able to get to the other side. They were able to see a different way. They were able to optimize their lives through these substances. That's when the change comes. That's where the support comes. That's where then people start to say, hey, wait a minute. Can you give me a little bit more information? Can you educate me a little bit? Can you cultivate me with some wisdom about what you're doing? So I think that we're in this time right now where, psychedelics are openly talked about. Look, Oprah Winfrey had a podcast about it not too long ago. CBS News had a 3-part series. There's obviously Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. So there is more talk about it now. So it's a little bit more accepted, right? The conversation. And I think that, again, when they see, okay, wait a minute, this guy worked at CNN. This guy's a father. This guy's a husband. This guy's volunteers in his community. This guy has a job. He's an entrepreneur. Then they're like, okay, wait a minute, talk to me a little bit more about what you're doing and how you're doing this.
Hmm. This is interesting. Before we get into the tactical aspect of microdosing, I wanted
Yeah.
to point out something very interesting. This is a paragon of the role model of society that now is using psychedelics. And so there is a
Yeah.
mismatch for the common person.
Yeah.
Like, what? Right?
Totally. Totally
Also,
mismatched.
coming from South America, the belief system that I had around drugs was they are good. Do not do them. You're gonna become an addict. So all of those belief
Hmm.
systems all of those belief systems were so entrenched in my mind that I never thought about it. And so when I started using psychedelics, it came from a completely facilitated way, from a ritualistic. When I
Hmm.
opened up my mind to just the question, not even changing the belief system, but it was like you mentioned, wait, are they call it sacrament? Wait a second, something that in one country they call it a drug, these people call it a sacrament. That is when I
Yeah.
opened up my mind. So in your case, for
Yes.
example, what was that those beliefs? Obviously, we now know your beliefs around this, but what were the previous
Yeah.
beliefs that you had around drugs? Drugs, right? Air quote drugs.
Yeah. 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 And the thing is, especially psychedelics. Look, I'm not gonna deny that I've used other substances before in my life. And in fact, if you know my story, if you heard my story, I dealt with a
Yeah,
with a bad relationship with cannabis, with a really, really bad
yeah.
relationship. So, but psychedelics, right? Those were always the ones for people who were way off the edge, like way, like
Mm,
no way. There's no way I'll ever do that. People go crazy. People have horrible experiences. Um, you know, it's bad. It's a bad situation. So it's that sense of, like you said, there's places where there's a sacrament. There's places I tell people, look, psychedelics have been around for mushrooms have been around for millennia. right? And
Way
they were
longer than
used
humans, probably.
way longer than humans, I'm sure, way longer than humans. And they were used, consciously, and they were used, for hunting, and they were used for optimization. And it wasn't until the 60s, the 50s and the 60s where a government said, "No, wait a minute, people shouldn't be using these substances. They can be awakened, they can sort of, they can see things a different way than what we want them to see." So it was that, look, I was always I was there was fear, there was lack of education, there was that sense of, no, that's for people who do drugs. You know what I mean? So there was that sense of, um, yeah, no way, not going to happen. And again, look, you said it. We both grew up in Latin American families, right? My parents are Colombian, and we were all told that drugs are bad, that you shouldn't do drugs because that's the end, you know what I mean, of society as we know it. So just like you, I was also stigmatized that psychedelics are bad, that
Mm.
they're not, you know what I mean? And again, then when that curiosity happens, when I had my first experience, and it was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is, and again, look, for me, like I've told many people, my first dive into psychedelics was a recreational curiosity. There wasn't a sense of healing. There wasn't a sense of sacrament. There wasn't a sense of, it was just, I wanted to see what this was about. And very quickly, the mushrooms were giving me this consciousness of, like, that's not what this is about. This isn't about getting
Mm.
high. This isn't about this. There's something more there to this, whether it's healing, whether it's optimization, and we hope that you can be a spokesperson for us, because, you're going to lose your job at
Wow.
CNN. So it was, you
Wow.
know, it's the sense, yeah, it's this sense of going from, like I said, snickering or laughing or psychedelics, to saying, no, wait a minute, hold on a second, like mind expansion, like consciousness, like manifesting the things that your mind has. There's a lot of potential, a lot of benefits that can come through this.
And how I call psychedelics is a technologies of the consciousness, basically.
I
And I love also that what you are using is not the word knowledge. You're using wisdom. Wisdom, it
Wisdom.
goes way beyond knowledge, right?
Knowledge, it does, because and look, JJ, we all have wisdom. Every single human has wisdom because of lived experiences, wisdom because of school, wisdom because of just adventures they've had. So the sense of being able to share that wisdom with others, and it's small little things. Look, I had never seen psychedelics as a technology until you mentioned it, after we first had met, right? And you said these could be, think of this as a technology, and I was like, wait a minute, he's absolutely correct. This is a technology. It is, when it's used that way, when it's used as a tool, right, as a technological tool. There's a lot of things that can be done.
Yeah, it's a tool for consciousness, or technologies for consciousness. And now there is something interesting. While I was doing this preparation, I found this story that you have with a bicycle. What happened in that story? Because I'll tell you
So
in a second. Tell us a little bit about that.
So so that was my first real psychedelic experience, right? And if people know psychedelic history, they know the history of Albert Hoffman and his bicycle day, the first time he tried LSD and his experience. Well, for me, it was funny because the first time I tried psychedelics, I had gotten a chocolate bar. I ate a piece of a chocolate bar, and I had literally had a microdose. So I really didn't. There was nothing. It was very subperceptual, and yes, there was a smile, but there wasn't anything else. And it wasn't until a week later that I have half of a chocolate bar that then the full blown real psychedelic experience happened. And of course it was crazy because, I take the we used to do this bike ride here in Atlanta, 300 people on Monday nights. Everyone would take over the city. It's just a fun time. And I have half of that chocolate bar before this bicycle ride. Um, and as I'm riding and the medicine, the come up happens, all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, that's what my hands feel like. And I start to breathe like really deeply, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, this is what it feels like to breathe and have my lungs filled with air. And I start to look around, and there's beautiful humans around me. And I look at the trees, and the trees got like 10 different colors and shades of green. And it's the Monday before Halloween, so houses are decorated. And it's this sense of, I tell people, Albert Huxley, back in Harvard in the 50s and 60s, when they coined the word psychedelics, he said, to fathom hell or feel angelic, take a pinch of psychedelic. Well, that first experience, there was this angelic moment of like this feeling and wonderment and these humans and what have I been missing in life. But as I'm driving home from this bike ride in my car, something says to me, what are you doing? Like what, like seriously, like what's going on? Why are you driving this way? You're driving behind the wheel of a car and you're hallucinating as you're driving like 70 miles an hour. What is wrong with you? You're 55 years old, and what are you, chasing highs? Is that what you're doing? So it was crazy, JJ, because I went from that feeling angelic, that moment of, yes, this is awesome, this is beautiful, to that fathoming hell of like my conscious telling me, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, have you lost your mind? So, and it was both beautiful, right? They were both beautiful because one was this message of enjoy being on this bicycle and enjoy the people around you and enjoy all the colors and enjoy the sense of feeling your hands and enjoy what it feels like to breathe. But at the same time, it was like, why, like, what are you doing? And this isn't what this is about. This is not. So it was really crazy, that experience, how there was these two messages of, yes, enjoy life, be mindful, don't miss anything around you, but at the same time, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you wasting your life away like this when there's so much potential of things you can do? And that's where then it was funny, because that same night, JJ, that same night I got home and I started right away as a journalist. I mean, I've been at CNN for 25 years. I start to investigate what happened. Like, what was it that these substances did? And that's when I realized and come across the fact that psychedelics were being used as medicine. And that, there's this thing called microdosing. And, for people who, most people I'm sure have heard the word microdosing, right? They've come across the term microdosing. For those who have not, microdosing is taking a small amount, a fractional amount, a tenth or a 20th of what a normal, a recreational, or a therapeutic dosage of psychedelics would be, or either of psilocybin, which is mushrooms, or LSD. So the idea is that you take a really small amount on a protocol. There's different protocols, whether it's 1 day on, 2 days off, 4 days on, 3 days off. There's different protocols that people use, but the idea is that you use these psychedelics in a subperceptual manner, that you don't feel anything, but you are getting a sense of, okay, wait a minute. There's more mindfulness. There's more mindfulness of, what am I doing right now? There's more mindfulness of, how can I get through this? There's more mindfulness of, let me not sit in the thoughts of the past, which can cause depression. And let me not sit in the thoughts of the future, which can cause anxiety. So, this term microdosing comes into my life, and it comes into my life at the time where I'm struggling, right, with the dependency and the relationship that I have with cannabis. And right away I realized, wait a minute, people are microdosing to overcome their dependencies, to substances, to situations, to issues. And that's when, of course, I dived headfirst into what is microdosing, how is it being used, who's using it, what books are there on there, are there documentaries, what stories can I read? So I became a sponge, which is what I also tell people, JJ, which I think it's important to educate yourself. I would hope that no one listening to this says, oh, I heard this story about this guy Cesar, he started microdosing, his life changed around, I'm going to do that. Do a little research, do some homework, figure out what your intentions are, why you're giving yourself consent to ingest something that could potentially change the way you look at things, change the way you think. So that part of it, I think, is really important. That educational part, that we educate ourselves about these substances and how to properly use them.
Hmm. There are so many points, but for the first one is you created, unbeknownst to yourself, your own bicycle day.
I
You
did.
created.
I did create my own bicycle day. There's actually a wonderful picture that's somewhere online of me that day, and I totally look like I'm in the afterglow. It's seriously, you see, you go, wait a minute, that's just a happy person. That's just a person that's got everything. That's a person that doesn't need anything except what he has at that very moment. So it was beautiful. It
Wow.
was it was a beautiful bicycle, even though even there was these moments of,
Right.
of what are you doing, of sort of pulling, pulling at my hairstring, saying, hey guy, this isn't what you should be
Right.
doing. But I did have my own bicycle day.
Amazing. For those who don't know about Hoffman's story on LSD, we're gonna put the link down there, which is fantastic. And
Uh-huh,
so
uh-huh.
this is interesting. In your case, and that was, and let's start going into what is
Yeah.
micro, what is macro dosing,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
something that I want to point out is the more that I research on your story, Cesar, it's like Cesar is doing mature dosing. That's what he's doing. It's mature
Yeah.
dosing, meaning
It's mature dosing. It
get
is.
get it. Yeah, it's getting into the weeds, but not just obviously with the only way, it doesn't matter how much we can read or listen to podcasts or interview people. And I remember this in my first ayahuasca experience. I researched for 8 months, Caesar. 8 months. And I said, I know it all. Guess what?
I know it all.
Drink and I do nothing.
I
Do
know nothing.
nothing.
That's the
Do
thing.
nothing, yeah.
And, and it's the expectations, right? We create, and that's why I say, look, redo your research just to be informed, right? But don't create expectations, because sometimes expectations can let you down. I love that story, because you're right, JJ. There are people who will investigate and who will search and who will say, okay, I'm ready, but the medicine might have a different, they might have a different, outcome
Very
for
different.
you. They might have a different message that they want you to see and listen to. So that is important that happens.
Yeah, yeah, and that the only way to get is dive into the pool and just learning along the
That's
way.
it.
Obviously, in this
Yeah.
case, you have had the structure and the structure. Not even being a journalist, I love that you tapped into your own curiosity.
Yeah, 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 and it's that, right. It's that sense of, I think optimization comes from challenging yourself, right. You can't optimize by not challenging yourself. You just impossible. You're stagnant. You'll stay the same, right. It's
Yeah,
just, that's just the way it is. You're not going to be your best version of yourself unless you're trying and doing this and being curious, right, and being curious in the sense of, what can these substances do, right? What can they, whether it's in a healing situation, right, where I'm struggling with trauma, or I'm struggling with, you know, depression or anxiety, and where is that coming from? And how can I, instead of being my thoughts, be my consciousness, right? That consciousness that was telling me, why are you driving this way? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need that sense of our real conscious mind, and not the
yeah,
monkey brain that's just going through the process and going through the motions and living in that default mode network, always doing the same things. It's that sense of, and you said it, JJ, that curiosity, that what happens if, and if I do it right, right? If I research, because here's the other thing, you did enough research that you knew that you weren't going to find some guy at a gas station and say, "Oh, I heard you serve ayahuasca. Can you sit with me?" Right? So
yeah.
you did enough research to say, "Okay, this is what I should look for. This is where I should go. This is what." And then again, of course, the medicine said, "Okay, wait a minute. You have to see something different. You need to see something different." But it's that research in the sense of, what I always fear is someone saying, "Oh, you know what? I've heard about that microdosing. It's about mushrooms. Didn't I see some chocolate bars there at the 7-Eleven that had some crazy mushrooms? Maybe I'll try those." That's always my fear. right? That hopefully someone says, okay, well, no, wait a minute, I want to microdose, but let me research a little bit more. And wait, there's, I can grow my own mushrooms. Hold on, wait a minute, maybe I can do that. Or, there's a company who's reliable, or, there's a different way to obtain these through a different source. That's the educational part, right? That we inform ourselves about what we're doing, especially with psychedelics. And even look, JJ, I'm sure with breath work also, right? There's a sense of, what you can get out of and optimize being with a coach who really knows what they're doing, with someone who is just, okay, I think I know about breath work. And that's where the education part comes in.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned this thing of going into. I remember this, and this is funny because my family came to visit. So my dad looks. First thing I did is took him to several panels that I was leading on psychedelics. So we go to a 7-Eleven just by coincidence, and he's like, oh, "There are mushrooms here." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Well, let me
Exactly.
explain to you that this is not what you're going to get, right? But this educational aspect goes also, as you mentioned, with breathwork. I see so many people going into what I call the YouTube breathwork university, right? So they go into YouTube and they've done breathwork, and then I ask them, "Do you have experience with breathwork?" "Yes, I've done
Yeah.
3 hours of breathwork on YouTube over the last 3 years." And I'm like, "Okay, that's a good starting point. Good starting
Good
point.
start.
Now
Yeah.
let's get
Good
back
starting
into this."
point.
And now I wanted to ask you this. So let's talk about now what is, because you had your first recreational, that sounds, that was superceptual microdosing without you realizing that that was a microdose. Then the
Yeah.
other one became more of a normal dose or a regular dose. And then
Mm-hmm.
how your nervous system specifically start finding what is the threshold, because my theory is that that's what I call precision optimization, finding
Yeah.
where in the realm of all of those ones we nail it for a specific purposes. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
find that one, and how do you start using microdosing in your life?
Okay. So like I said, microdosing initially came um, out of it was, yes, it was definitely a need to change my relationship with cannabis. That was like that was the main intention, right? The main intention was like, okay, how do we deal with this? The other intention, which again, intentions are a big part of microdosing and
Good
any
point.
part of psychedelics, right? Any part of psychedelics, there has to be that intention. What is your intention to do this? What is the purpose for you doing this? So for me, that intention with microdosing was, one, overcome the cannabis dependency, change your relationship with cannabis, like change your relationship,
Nice.
and
And
two,
and just to mention, it is not that you replaced it. It's not that you had dependency on
correct,
cannabis and replacing it.
correct.
Got it. That's a good point.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, correct. And again, um, I think that there's this sense of dependency, right? And unmanageable addiction, right? Where the unmanageable addiction is sometimes the lack of being able to say not right now. Oh, you're at work at CNN, maybe you shouldn't be smoking a vape here. Not right now. No, no, no. I'm addicted to this. I like this. This is part of me. You know what I mean? No, right now. Yes, right now. But you're at work. No, no, no. It doesn't matter. That is an unmanageable addiction, right? Now, when you're able to consciously say, not right now, you're at work, or you're doing this, or you're whatever it is, that's a big difference. So for me, the microdosing is all about intentions, right? Whether it's I'm going to start microdosing on 4-week protocol of LSD because I have this project that I'm working on and I want to be able to focus and really lean in and tune into it, right? So that intentionality is a big part of the microdosing, right? We go back to the microdosing being sub-perceptual, right? In the sense of you're not feeling, but you're doing, right? You're not feeling anything lightheaded, weird, or whatever, but you are
Cognitively.
doing things differently. Yeah, you're doing things more consciously, right? So that's again that part of microdosing is is a sense of intentions, doing the work that needs to be done, and then again finding that afterglow, finding that flow state. For me, I'll usually have two I've never had, I mean, again, I've only been doing this for 2.5 years. Psychedelics have only been part of my life for 2.5 years. But there was a year where I did have 3 macro dose settings, all intentional. One of them was incredibly beautifully profound. My first real intentional use of psychedelics, with having a partner sit for me, with having, it wasn't, I'm going to go on a bike ride and sort of whatever,
Yeah.
see what happens. This was like, no, I want to use these medicines and really see. And I tell people, look, the podium of my life. Number one, the birth of my 3 kids. That without a doubt. That's top podium of my life. Number two, meeting the woman of my dreams after the age of 50, who's been an incredibly wonderful support system for me. And then number three, that intentional use of psychedelics on my 55th birthday. It was November 16th, 2022, because it was literally such an eye-opening experience of what my life has been and what it can be. So that being said, that was a beautiful experience, right? That was wonderful. Now, I've had challenging journeys. I had a journey about a year and a half ago, and again, wonderful intentions. Go in. What should I be doing? What should I be looking for? Where's this business going? What else can I do to take this forward? And as the medicine starts to kick in, I get the sense of like, wait a minute, like I feel like I'm dying, I'm dying, I made I made the rookie mistake of psychedelics, which is looking at yourself in the mirror, and I literally looked like I was dying. Like I guess the perception that I had
Right.
was this sense of like I'm days away. I have cancer. There's something riddling my body. There's something eating away at my body, and it's just killing it slowly but surely. I try to go outside. It was cobwebs. I couldn't step outside of my own house. And in all of this, I get the sense in this message of like, anything you've done before this to get sick, there's nothing you can do. Now, moving forward, there's a bunch of things you can do. So you want to know what to do with this business, where to take this business? Well, didn't you used to wake up every day and work out? What happened to that? Now you're like, oh, I got to do this email. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to send this. I got to go by this. I got to go by that. And then, oh, I'll work out tomorrow. I'll work out tomorrow. I promise Monday. Monday I'll work out. So what happened to that? You used to have a nutrition regimen, right? And now you're owning this business. So now it's like you're eating whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just working. So all these dreams that you have about this potential business, you might not be around to see them because you're not taking care of yourself. So even in that big journey, as challenging as it was, there was a message behind it. I just had to listen to the message. I had to be open to it. I had to be, okay, why is this happening? Why am I feeling like I'm dying? Why is it? I could have resisted and held back and, fought it off and no, I'm not dying. No, I'm not sick. And I would have lost the message. I would have missed the message that my own consciousness was telling me of like, guy, take care of yourself before you take care of your business. Because without yourself, the business doesn't exist, right? The business is not going to exist without you. So it's that sense, especially with psychedelics, right? Again, number one, intentions. What are your intentions? Why are you doing this? Number two, flow with whatever, whether you're microdosing, flow through your microdosing. It's a macrodose, flow through your macrodose. And then again, that integration, JJ, we talk about it enough, but people need to hear it more, right? It's the integration of psychedelics, the integration of what you're doing with the messages that you received, with what your conscious told you. That's where the work is. That's where the real work is. Because look, I could have had that experience and went, oh man, that was just drugs. Thank God I'm not on the drugs anymore. I'm good. Okay, let's go. Let's continue to do what we were doing. Or
Let's
I
go
could
get
have
a
said,
burger.
you know what? Yeah, let's go get a burger. Let's go get a big fat juicy burger with fries. Or I could have said, no, wait a minute, hold on a second. Let me get my exercise clothes ready for tomorrow. You know what I mean? And let me set that alarm. And let me make sure my water's ready. And let me make sure I have some meals planned for. And that's and again, that's what's needed, right? It's not psychedelics aren't, I'm going to do some psychedelics and then next morning my life is going to be amazing. It's going to be
Yeah.
rainbows and
Yeah.
butterflies. It's takes work, and it takes integration, and it takes mindfulness, and it takes consciousness, to then be able to move forward with what these substances, or these molecules are helping work in your brain.
Now let's go more into the tactical. Now there is an intention. Intention changes
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
It changes
Yes, of
basically the,
course.
the input, right? Even with food, I could be eating, as you mentioned, in front of my laptop, like just dumping edibles inside of my mouth to get the system running, but that is not intentional. Intentional is when we are in front of the
Exactly.
meal and then we have a different relationship to this food that we're gonna intake. Intention is
Hmm.
first thing, and then you mentioned about the different protocols. So let's talk about for people because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the main mistakes of a newbie microdoser is just popping pills and thinking that they're doing microdosing. How do I
Yeah.
overcome
Yeah.
that and other mistakes, and what are structured ways to start diving into microdosing?
Mm. So I love that you said that, because I've met many people who are like, you microdose? Yeah, I microdose. What protocol are you on? Protocol? No, I just whenever I just have some
What
mushrooms.
are you talking
Yeah.
about?
What do you? What? No, that's not microdosing, right? That is dosing, right? That is using mushrooms, and most people in that sense use them a bit. Instead of using alcohol to sort of at least get socially loose a little bit. But that's not microdosing. That's not microdosing at all. So there's the most three common protocols, right? Are the Fadiman protocol, which is the protocol that was come up by Dr. James Fadiman. Dr. James Fadiman is considered the godfather of microdosing. He, when all the studies started to go, the funding was cut by the government back in the 60s. Dr. Fadiman decided to do some citizen science and put it out there, and had people send back reports of how they were using small amounts of psychedelics, and he realized that people who were using it 1 day on and 2 days off had a really good sense of the outcome of what they were having. That first day was a dosage day, which was, again, the medicine is being processed. You're getting the sense of, man, life is really wonderful. I have everything I need. That second day is a transition day. You're transitioning out of it. You're getting the sense of like, oh, you know what? Yesterday, I wasn't thinking about those depressive thoughts that were ruminating. Why do I have to think about them today? And then that third day is that integration day, right? That integration day is that sense of like, okay, I'm back at baseline. How do I handle, right? If someone cuts me off in the road, am I going to sit there and blow on the horn and tell them to go F themselves? Or am I going to be like the 2 days before, where I'm like, wait a minute, they didn't hit my car. Life is wonderful. Life is good. So that's why for a lot of people, that Fadiman protocol, that 1 day on, 2 days off, really works. Then another popular protocol is the Stamets protocol, which was developed by Paul Stamets, a world famous mycologist and expert in mushrooms. And Paul's protocol calls for 4 days on and 3 days off. And it all depends. It's like I tell people, it's citizen science, right? My protocol most likely is not going to work for you. My dosage is most likely not going to work for you, because it's my dosage and it's my protocol. But so that's why citizen science is so important. That's why, journaling. I'm doing 1 day on, 3 days off. I started on Monday. I dosed on an empty stomach. I did 150 milligrams of psilocybin. Okay, that's why that journaling is important, because then, 2 weeks in, you can say, okay, wait a minute, I'm feeling something. What happens if we go 200 milligrams? Okay, 200 milligrams is fine. Okay, let's another couple weeks later, let's do some more citizen science. Let's go to 250 milligrams. Oh, 250 milligrams. Now I'm okay. Well, I'm feeling something now. Now you know what I mean? I'm feeling a little bit lightheaded. I'm feeling like I'm happy, but I want to take a nap. That's when we know, okay, we've reached baseline. Let's bring it down a little bit, right? Let's tap it down. So that's why citizen science is important in the dosage, right? Now, citizen science is incredibly important also in the protocol. Someone who I worked with, I had put them on a protocol of 1 day on, 2 days off. Usually, protocols last between 4 to 6 weeks. It's never recommended that anyone microdose longer than 6 weeks, because what happens is the body starts to build up tolerance, right? So you can get to a point where it's not really doing anything, and next thing you know, you're 250 milligrams, 300 and now you're not microdosing. Now you're literally overdosing on a microdose. So that's why, again, that citizen science is incredibly important. So this person that I was working with, we did 3 days on, 1 day on, 2 days off. And it was a person who had a job with a lot of deadlines, daily 2, 3, 4 deadlines. And he said, Cesar, the first day I feel great. The second day, my mind is wandering a little bit on the deadlines. The third day, it's almost like the deadlines are there again. So we said, well, let's try 4 days on, 3 days off, see how that works. We had done 2 weeks of the 1 day on, 2 days off. So we finish off the last couple of weeks, the last 4 weeks, 4 days on, 3 days off. He calls me on the fourth week and he says, Cesar, I got called into my boss's office. And I went, what happened? And he said, they want to know how my productivity went up 15% in the last 4 weeks. And he said, I'm just more focused. I'm more focused on the job. I come in, Monday morning before work, I'm already focused. Half the job's already done. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm just, the deadline doesn't even exist, to the point that by Friday, I'm almost done with all the work for the week. So I'm just like, okay. So again, that's why for him, it was important to do some citizen science and change that protocol. Then people usually, I think for me, the idea is, I use microdosing as a life performance enhancer now, right? I do go on protocols, but I'm more intuitive, right? I'm more intuitive with my microdosing. I look more down the schedule. Okay, 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, I have this project that I'm working on. I really need to be focused on it. I really need to be honed in. Let me start a nice little 5-week protocol to really tune in to where I am, and then obviously taking those breaks. Taking those breaks are really important. Those breaks of integration are paramount in the microdosing thing, and it goes back to what you were saying, JJ. People saying, "Oh yeah, no, yeah, I've been microdosing every day for 3 years. Every day, yeah, every day. Okay, I'm not sure. The body's got to build up some type of tolerance. So it's for me, my protocol is 1 day on, 2 days off, right? My flow state is about 250 milligrams of psilocybin, and again, I find that flow state. I did do my own citizen science and got to the point where I was like, that's too much. That's not for me. So it's again,
And,
this the citizen science part of it is incredibly important.
I like that part a lot, especially for people that are brand new to the concept or the idea of
Hmm.
citizen science, is being in one sense the guinea pig and the scientist at the same time.
Correct. I love
This
that.
is
I never thought about it that way. That's so true, JJ. That is so true. You're the scientist and the guinea pig all in one.
right, and taking notes. That's what the majority of people I see that they miss, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to remember. No, you're not gonna remember. You have your
No.
phone, you take notes, and then you start taking like becoming more acquainted with the reality, becoming
Mhm.
more aware. Now, two things that just popped up in my mind. The first one is when I was also preparing for this interview, I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm probably mind reading, but sounds that you internally have had a sense of more connection with your body, and eventually to the point that now you can do it intuitively. What do I mean? And this is what I'm seeing as a progression. A person that is disconnected from their body, they start microdosing, they start feeling their body, but eventually within 3 6 months they now can do what you are doing. So that's a kind of a developmental stage or developmental relationship to the shrooms. Does that sound accurate or?
That's it. No, that's so accurate, JJ. That's so accurate. When you're in tuned, right? When you live, one of the other things that microdosing really helped me to do was to live in the now, to live in this present moment. Like the only thing that exists is this podcast we're doing, because it's true. It's the only thing that exists. I can't be thinking about, what I mean, my car that's in the driveway, or I can't, because I can't fix it right now because I'm here, right? Or I can't be thinking about what I need to be doing in 3 weeks because that's in 3 weeks, right? Or I can't be thinking about if I would have done this morning, you know what I mean, and instead of working out half hour, I would have worked out an hour. Doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't. The only thing that matters is what you're doing at this moment, at this very minute. And I tell people sometimes, look, because we get caught up, JJ, and like, I gotta get this and I gotta get that and I gotta get this and I gotta get that and this, and then we're like chasing, right?
Mm.
And I tell people, look, once in a while, take a second and do a 360. Just look around and go, wait a minute, I have everything I need at this minute, at this very moment. I have everything I need. And when we do that, that sense of clarity, right? That helps me to be intuitive with my microdosing, right? That helps me to know my body, understand my body, know what I'm feeling. Take a second and close my eyes and scan my whole body. Where the tension points, where are the points that I'm feeling more loose, where's the points, and mentally where am I, right? Because that's a major thing that a lot of people don't do or don't talk about, which is that sense of that mental clarity, right? We talk about the physical part, right? We talk about exercising our bodies, we talk about exercising our muscles, but there's this sense of exercising our minds that is incredibly important, and we should really look at and take care of.
Mm. And it sounds that actually people are, from my perspective, they are exercising their minds, but in the wrong way. What do I mean? Those ruminating thoughts, they're creating synapses that are making their thoughts even stronger and stronger and stronger. So by stopping or by relaxing the mind, that changes, right? And I also want to be respectful of your time. Do you have like 10 more
No,
minutes?
I have
Are we
time.
good?
No, I have time. No, JJ, I love this. I
Great,
love this conversation.
great,
I love this conversation we're having.
nice. I have another question that is also in the
Yeah.
realm of nailing what is for a person's threshold, or what is the sweet spot. And something that I heard you in another podcast is that you used your yawns, your yawning as a way to
Yeah.
measure what was it. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. That's exactly what I knew. I knew that I had reached that threshold, right? Again, that's citizen science. I'd done 150 milligrams. Okay, let's see what happens with 200 milligrams. Okay, 200 milligrams, I'm getting a little bit more flow state. 250, okay, things are clear now. Things are really clear. 300 milligrams, all of a sudden it was, and again, it was early in the morning, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like really start yawning. Like, wait a minute, hold on a second. No, 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 no. That's too much. That's too much. And it was this sense of, yes, clarity, yes, happiness, but I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And that to me, that is the side effect for myself of that heavy load of psilocybin. It'll be the same thing, when the times I've had sittings with bigger, larger dosages of psilocybin. I know it's happening when that yawniness just starts to overcome and overtake almost everything I'm doing.
Wow. What have you seen in
Mhm.
other people that you work with? How they find their threshold? It's also through yawns. Is what other metrics?
You know
Or
what?
it's funny to call them metrics because they're more an intuitive thing, right?
Yeah, it's more intuitive. It's definitely more intuitive. And what I tell people is, again, when they start to microdose, right? People want this sense of I should be feeling something. I should be feeling something, and
Mm.
that's where the journaling. That's where the journaling is really important. What I do with the people I work with, JJ, is that they have to have a journal. Right? You have to have a journal, and in that journal, there's only 3 times you have to write during the day. Right? In the morning, 2 times. I'm sorry, 2 times during the day. In the morning, what are your intentions? Oh, you know what? My intention is to finish this project. My intention is to call my mom because I haven't called her in 2, 3 days. My intention is to go into the supermarket and say good morning to everybody. Just because I don't know, it might change somebody's day. It might change my day. So what are my intentions, right? So I tell my clients,
Mm.
write your intentions, write where your intentions are. So you give yourself a roadmap and you give the medicine also a roadmap of what you're looking to navigate, right?
Mm.
So I tell them that's important. And then at the end of the day, I have my clients just write down what their high and their low is, right? What that high of the day was, what that moment that you're like, man, that was awesome. I want to tell my grandchildren about that because that was a great moment. And that moment where you're like, you know what? Yeah, I could have done better. That wasn't really a good look for me. Or, you know what? I wasted time doing whatever, or I really wasn't paying attention. What was the high and what was the low? And I think that that part of citizen science goes a long way because And it goes back to that measuring, right? You can sort of, what was the low? Well, the low was that I felt tired and it was really weird, and I felt nauseous, so that was a low. Well, maybe it was that much of the psilocybin that was too much. So it is that sense of, for most people who I've worked with, that sense of like, okay, I'm feeling tired or a little nauseous, right? A little stomach situation, right? But not over the top. And again, microdosing, right? That small amount. And like I tell people, always start slow. Never start in a big situation where it's going to be unmanageable. It's better to sort of start slow and work your way up. That once you get to that threshold, right? Because you're not going to go from 100 milligrams to 500 milligrams, because then it's like, okay, wait, where's my sweet spot then, right? So if you increment at those 50 milligrams, what I've seen is that most people, once they get to that past that sweet spot, it is that sense of, I'm tired, like I'm tired, but I'm still happy. So I think that that to me is always the barometer that people I work with, that I have them look out for. This is what you should be looking out for. This is what you should be sensing, and it's the journaling is a really important part, especially because we're talking about what we're doing and not what we're feeling. I love using the example of a woman who I was working with, JJ, who 3 weeks in, she comes to me and she says like I don't know if this is working or not. Like should I be feeling something? Like what should I be feeling? I said, okay, let's go back to your journaling, right? And let's find a day in your journal where like you wrote a little bit more. There was something about that day that was special. And she goes, all right, let me go back. And she goes, okay, wait a minute. There was this day where this coworker who I cannot stand, like I can't even stand the way she breathes. That's how much I couldn't stand her. Came to me with the problem, and something said to me, just take a deep breath and listen to her. And she's like, okay. And she sat there and she listened, instead of having right away this notion of, I don't like this person. She was very open to it. And they realized they had a whole bunch of stuff in common. They ended up having coffee that afternoon. And it was something she did. It wasn't something she felt. She didn't feel like, now I like this person. It was something she did. She said, you know what? Let me listen to this person. Let me do that at least. And that's why the journaling is incredibly important, because we get that sense of, okay, what am I doing differently? How am I acting differently? Whether it's, hey, you know what? I went out and I didn't decide to not have alcohol. You know what I mean? A lot of people talk about how microdosing has helped them, manage, even if they're a social drinker, in the sense of going out and saying, oh, you know what? Not right now. I don't need that alcoholic drink right now. So again, those little things, if we're mindful and conscious and write them down, that's where we can sort of lead to, okay, this is working, this dosage is working, this protocol is working, I'm in my flow state.
Hmm. This is making me think a lot because we're now assembling not only the microdosing part but the integration part, and the way that you
Mm-hmm.
define or that you portray integration is fantastic. And how I see things is, many times a person will say, "I've been trying to fill in the blanks with the habit, but it doesn't stick." And that they feel very depressed, they feel very frustrated, they feel disappointed with
Mm.
themselves, etc. But what I'm hearing is these kind of protocols, what the medicine is helping to do is actually help them to experiment with even not only the cadence of the protocol that they're going through, but during this 5 6 weeks period, to experiment with integration tactics, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
and you said
Mm.
working out. What other ones? And in your case, what are those kind of experiments that you've run? Because it's not only through medicine. It sounds like you have had rounds of habits that you have maybe added, removed, etc.
It's I love that you say that, JJ, because and we the panel that you invited me to when I was in Austin, which was incredibly wonderful. And again, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to be in front of your incredible, wonderful community, because
Thank you.
that was really beautiful. But we talked about that integration is really a state of mind. That's where it starts, right? It's a state of mind of saying, yes, I can do this. Yes, let me meditate. Yes, let me take a cold shower. Yes, let me be more mindful of what I eat. Yes, let me be more mindful of making sure that I exercise. Those things are again what optimizes us, right? It's these things of, am I doing things to optimize my life, right? And how, optimization in the sense of health, optimization in the sense of love with your fellow humans, optimization in the sense of, creating, what I call love you wealth, right? Not creating wealth just for me, but creating wealth so that I can give to others, right? So because my smile is not going to get any bigger, but how can I create other smiles? What can I create, to do and be better as myself to do that and have a way to contribute, right? Because at the end of the day, it's if something that has really been amplified for me the last 2.5 years is that sense of contribution. Like, what am I contributing to? What am I leaving? And not what is my legacy in the sense of like, how are people going to remember me? But what am I doing? Like, what am I doing to make a difference? Like, what am I doing to either change the way people think or to open up their childhood curiosity or be a support system? So that integration comes down to that presence of mind, the presence of conscious mind of right now. You know what I mean? Am I doing the right things? Am I exercising like I should be exercising? Right? Because that's what the medicine told me. Am I being mindful and kind to the others around me, like the medicine has asked me to? Because there's moments where I'm not present and I'm not there for the others. So it's that integration starts with the state of mind. Starts with that present state of right now. What am I doing right now? To make myself, again, a better person, to live a better life, to live a happier life, to, be more joyful, because the more joy that I can spread, the more joy that can come back to me. And it was funny, JJ, because you said, when you first introduced me, it was this sense of like I want people to be happy around me. Like I wanna radiate positive vibrational energy so that people can feel that also, and so that it comes back to me, right? It's a dual exchange. It's not. It's a bit selfish, right? That I give love in hopes of having love come back, right? It might be a selfish situation, but it's loving in the sense of giving love, knowing that hopefully that love will come back. But if it doesn't come back, it's okay, because I'm not exchanging it, to get love back. I'm just exchanging it because that's the way I feel. That's the way my heart is, and it's important that we lead that way, JJ. I think that we can get in these mental ruts, right? And sometimes more than others, right? And there's people that go through harder times than ever. But I think that if we lead with at least a smile, things can go a little bit differently. And in case in point, when I was in Austin, I was leaving the convention center we were at South by Southwest, and all of a sudden I hear somebody next to me, and all I hear is F this, F, 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 F. It's just angry, whatever. And as they get closer, I can sense it. Okay, it smells like it's a homeless person, right? There's some, you know what I mean? And as he gets closer, I see he's got like a blanket over him. And he's just really upset. He's just really angry. And I think I have a couple bucks in my pocket, I think. And I grabbed him and I grab his hand and I look at him and I said, what has you so angry? Like, why are you so upset? And he said, nobody sees me. Like, nobody sees me. Like, I gave everything for this country. I wore a uniform. I've bled. I've sweated. I have shrapnel in my head. And now people walk by like I'm invisible. So, of course, me being who I am, I grabbed him and I hugged him. And I mean, here, it didn't matter that he's a homeless person. It doesn't matter that he smells. He's a human fucking being. That's all that matters. Everything else did not matter to me except that this man needed a hug. And when he finally let go of that anger in my embrace, when he's finally like, okay, why am I feeling this way? He said to me, why did you do that? And I said, because you needed that more than anyone. And that's the thing, JJ. We don't know who needs a hug. Like we don't know a small part of something that's so. It's just a hug, right? For some people, it could be incredibly, incredibly big. So after that hug, I took him and I said, "Look, how about if you do this instead? Instead of being angry, right? You walk around, you lift your chest a little bit. Be proud of what you've done. Be proud that you gave for this country. Be proud that you wore that uniform, right? And then you just walk around with a smile saying good morning to people. It's that, right? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pass by 5 people. 3 of them are not even going to look at you. You're going to be invisible. One of them might even spit on you, but you're going to have that one person that you're going to say good morning to, and they're going to need that. And they're the ones that are going to say, you know what, here, go have a coffee. Here, go have a meal. Hey, you know what? Are you busy? I need some yard work in my house. Would you mind? You don't know. But if you're angry, like if you're walking around just angry at yourself, angry at the world, angry at everything, asking myself, why is this happening to me? Instead of, for what is this happening to me? Life completely changes when we walk around. And JJ, I get that around you, man. The times I've been around you, it's just positive coming out. It's just positiveness all over it. You know what I mean? And you could be having the worst day of your life, and it's still gonna be like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we do this. So it's that sense of, we create our happiness. Every single one of us, right? We decide. Am I going to be happy or am I going to be sad? Am I going to be angry? And I have seen personally in my life that when I'm walking around with a smile, when I'm walking around embracing people, when I'm walking around spreading, a smile, spreading some type of joy, it always comes back. It always somehow, some way, always comes back.
There is this song by this Uruguayan composer, Jorge Drexler. Nada se pierde,
Mm-hmm.
todo se transforma. Nothing gets lost, everything gets transformed. And
That's true.
it reminded me of, giving something, knowing that we live in an enclosed system. Still pretty, we call it universe, but it's an enclosed system. It's
Yeah,
going to return
yeah, it
in some way.
is. Yeah, totally.
Thanks
That's
for
so
sharing that
true.
story. Thank you for sharing that story about South by South. It really
Yeah, and
touched me
it's
really much.
you don't know who needs a hug, man. It's I had a day at Starbucks a couple months ago and start the conversation with someone, and whatever we talk about life, and when we go to say goodbye, I gave him an embrace, and he held on longer than usual, and he said to me, "You don't know how long it's been since I haven't had a
Yeah,
hug." So it's like,
yeah.
go out and hug people, man. It's such a wonderful feeling, that human connection, right? That sense of, I'm here for you, I hear you, I see you, because that's as humans. Um, I think somehow we all crave that, right? We all crave being heard, we all crave being held, right? We all crave
Being
being
seen.
understood and being seen, but we have to do it too. Like we have to do it. It
Yeah.
starts with us. It starts with us, and when you do that, then you will be seen, then you will be heard, then you will be understood. But it's when we don't. It's when we sort of we don't see that's and it's look, everyone has struggles, everyone does, and some people's struggles are harder than others. But I know for a fact that there's people living in $3 million homes who are miserable, and I know people who are living under a bridge who are like, you know what, today's a good day. Today's a good day. So it's again, it goes back to our mental state. It goes back to our mental state. And if we wake up every day saying, man, today, best day of my life, today's gonna be the best day of my life, then it's going to be. And every day is gonna be the best of your life. And why not? What a better way to live life than knowing that every day is the best day of your life. It has to
Mm.
be. But if you're living in like, oh, well, no, the best day of my life was 10 years ago when I was out on the cruise and whatever. Or, no, my best day is probably, 10 years from now when I have a Ferrari, when I have this. No, right now, today, best day of your life.
Mm. Mm. I'm so glad that you follow your curiosity and you had your bicycle day. I'm so glad.
So, believe me, JJ, so am I. So am I, because I love that you said that, because people have asked me, like, what would my life have been like if plant medicine wouldn't have come into my life when it did, right? Like, I don't know. There's not, look, I was a producer at CNN. That being said, there's not a lot of people hiring TV producers. TV's dying, right? And a lot of people watching,
Mm.
sitting, hey, it's 6 o'clock. I got to go watch the news. So, I'm not sure what would have happened in my life, but I am also really happy that I did answer my curiosity and that I did have my own bicycle day, because it's done such magical things. It's created such magic. It's brought me such incredibly wonderful humans, like these beautiful humans who, you know, weren't exposed to me before, because again, I was through this corporate rat race where now it's like I'm more present to the people who are in front of me, and seeing them and hearing them and hugging them and loving them. And that, man, that beautiful day, best day of my life, every day.
Wow. Thank you so much, Cesar. In order to finalize also this conversation, where can we learn more about you, your work, and start getting into mature dosing through microdosing, macrodosing? Where do we get there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of places, right? One, there's microdosingover50.com. Microdosingover50.com is a platform for people over 50, and you don't have to be over 50. There's fun information and good stuff on there for people to get honest, open, and objective information about microdosing and about psilocybin and psychedelics. So there's Microdosing Over 50. There is the apparel brand that we talked a little bit about. The idea behind the apparel brand is for people to be able to manifest the fact that they're using psychedelics, to proudly manifest it, to boldly manifest it, that they're using psychedelics without it being trippy or psychedelic or tie-dye, right? That we be looked at as adults, right? To have honest conversations, because sometimes some of the other apparel might go off as, he's just tripping, whatever. He's going off to a Dead concert, or he's going to some rave, or whatever that is, that we can, have these conversations, these honest, open conversations. So it's, cultivatingwisdom.net is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of cultivating wisdom, right? It's a lifestyle of sharing this wisdom that we have. It's a lifestyle of being proud of the responsible use of psychedelics. So they can find me there. And then, on Instagram, it's cultivating.wisdom, which is the platform that I use to share my stories and share my messages. And, you can see if I'm at South by Southwest, or, if you can see where I'm hanging out, and, you can get some really good information on microdosing. So there's a couple places. So the Instagram account, the cultivatingwisdom.net, the microdosing over 50. And then of course, as a thought leader and as a speaker, I'm also available at LinkedIn, Cesar Marin. I'll give conferences on wellness, on, that mental clarity after the age of 50, which is really important. After 50, we start suffering from so many things. We start getting up out of bed, and things that we didn't even know exist start hurting. You know what I mean? When that depressive state comes on, our kids don't call us as much as we'd want them to. We're losing our jobs. People are getting divorced. So it's a talk of mental clarity, that mental state of flow and of living in the now, can help us navigate any obstacles and challenges that we face.
Fantastic. We're going to put all of those links down here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
closing, Cesar, what's one question that you will leave the audience with to open up their minds to psychedelics and microdosing in specific?
The question is, where do you want to be? Where do you really want to be? Right? Where do you see yourself when you close your eyes? Right? Where do you see yourself potentially 6 weeks from now? And kind of see, what is it that's holding you back? What is the challenge for you? And then knowing that maybe microdosing, if it's done the right way, if you've done your homework, if you've done some research, if you know what your intentions are to do this, that they can really help you optimize, and become that version of yourself that when you close your eyes, you see. Because it's all up to you. Look, JJ, I'm not a fan of the word magic mushrooms, because the magic comes from the human. You are the human. If you're listening to this, know that you are the magic, and you have the potential and ability to do anything that you want to and set your mind to. That's what it takes. If you do that, then anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Thank you so much, Cesar. This one has been an amazing conversation. I was so excited about it, and I'm like, I have to integrate all this conversation, which has been very trippy
So
for
do
me.
I. Right? It's been awesome, JJ. And like I say, look, it's about cultivating wisdom, right? Go out and cultivate your wisdom, right? Use that wisdom that you have and cultivate it, share it, leave that as your legacy, right? Spread much love. Go out there and spread all the love possible. Love all the humans, every single one of them. The person that you hate the most, love them more than the person you love the most, because that's going to make you happy, right? That'll make you feel better. So, and again, live like today's the best day of your life, because it is. It is the best day of your life. Yesterday's not really a day. Yesterday's a memory. Tomorrow's not really a day. That's just a fantasy. So today is really the only day we have. So go out there and live like it. It's the best day of your life. To all of you who are listening, thank you for being part of the best day of my life. JJ, thank you always for being part of the best day of my life. It's really, really such a pleasure and an honor to share space with you, because I know who you are, what you are. I see you. Like, I see what you're doing, and it's beautiful. So for me to be able to be any little part of that, what an honor. What a true pleasure and an honor to be part of this.
Likewise, Cesar, it's mutual, and I know that we're going to do this same episode in Spanish in a
Yes,
little bit.
sí,
In a
sí,
few
sí,
months.
sí, sí.
Vamos a hacer en
Yes,
español esto.
that'll be fun. That'll
Muchísimas
be fun.
gracias. Thank you so much, Cesar. Okay. If
Keep
you
it up,
guys
JJ.
enjoyed this conversation thank you so much. If you guys enjoyed this conversation with Cesar Marin from Cultivating Wisdom and Microdosing over 50, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to receive notifications for upcoming interviews. That's all for today. In the meantime, keep learning, keep optimizing. See you soon, guys.